everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar, and I am your host as always here. And it's good to be back after the first home league match of the season. Rangers getting off to a good home start. We'd got off to a winning start the week before at Livingston when we defeated Kilmarnock by 2-0. Joining me to discuss that and look ahead to, well, if it's not a mountain, it's certainly a big hill to climb, is first of all, the Sage of Saltcoats, Andy McGowan. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on when the listeners listen to this, Andy.
Yeah, hello from me. Thanks for having me on, David. I'm doing well.
Always a pleasure, my friend. And from deepest Derbyshire, it's James Tessier. Good evening, good morning, etc., etc. Tess.
Hey up, chaps. It's nice to be with you.
It's good to have you, my friend. Right, so season started at Livy, and tough ground out the victory. Kind of similar against Kilmarnock. I don't think expectations were much different, to be honest. I think given it was a Derek McInnes team, we thought they would come to Ibrox, they would be well organised, they would get men behind the ball, not really have much attacking intent. All of those things came to pass. It was whether Rangers could break them down, and Rangers eventually did. Antonio Cholak's first competitive goal for the club, followed up by a very popular goal indeed, the returning Alfredo Morelos, showing us what we've been missing these past 5 months. So victory in the bag, Andy, but there were some concerns stated that, again, it was a very similar performance to what we saw last season at times, where Rangers struggling against, they call it low blocks these days, men behind the ball, as you and I would know it as. And that, again, Rangers just not quite on each other's wavelength. Now, where it's different to last season and maybe previous seasons is Rangers are bedding in a number of new attacking options, which we haven't seen before at Ibrox. But even so, among the victory, and you'll always take any win in the Premier League, the old cliche, another 36 of them will be fine. But were there slight concerns for you?
There were. I had red flags the first half at Livingston, and those same red flags were kind of waving to me the first half on Saturday as well. And, I've got to check myself because, as you said, we're bedding in new players. It's totally unrealistic to have a free-flowing football team after 3 competitive games, whatever it is, when you've made a number of changes, particularly in attacking third. But there's just, I don't know what it is, David. I think we're just 10% too safe, maybe 20% too safe, and I would like to see a wee bit more maverick initiative. We're seeing it in flashes for likes of Tillman, but I'm looking at likes of Scott Wright here. Don't check in, take your man on. Tom Lawrence was opposite. He was always looking to shape up to take on a man or shoot or move forward. I just felt in the first half, at half time I was cracking up because I could sense that we really needed a breakthrough, and the longer this went on, the more it suited Derek McInnes' the dirge that he serves up for what he calls football.
Tess, I'm going to talk to you later about Tom Lawrence in a bit more detail. Obviously, you're very familiar with the guy after watching him at Derby for a while, but I thought he was excellent and got better progressively throughout the match, taking the responsibility. But on Andy's point, and I think it's a fair point, that quite often Rangers do lapse into playing safely, which is the extra touch, which is the turn back, which is the retained possession, I get, but there is a risk-reward factor, especially when you're up against packed defences. You have to try it, and you've got to be confident enough in yourself that if you do it and everybody goes, which, will happen at any football ground, but particularly at Ibrox, that you then go, I don't care, I'm going to do that the next time because one of these will get through. And in the opening 2 matches, there have been sparks of that, but really not much more than that.
Well, I've been lucky enough to attend both league games this season, and I've had 2 different perspectives of it. At Livingston last week, I was in one of the ends. My view of the match was Rangers just passing it side to side, playing in front of their back 4, not really penetrating, not going direct, just side to side, nice passy. And obviously, once we did switch it up, Tav's free kick, superb. A lovely ball in for Arfield to equalise, again, superb. But other than that, it was all nice, tippy-tappy, side to side, not really going anywhere. Where I sit at Ibrox, it's up in the Govan rear. So rather than being behind the football, I'm up looking down on it. So I've got a different perspective of things. And again, it was the same kind of thing, all side to side. But then you do see the little passes backwards. You are able to focus on one or two players, see how they're moving, see what kind of space they're getting into, what space they're creating, and we just didn't seem to be doing it on Saturday. We were the first half. It was pretty poor, to be honest. But as we know, Derek McInnes knows how to come to Ibrox and get a result. So I don't think that was really surprising. Obviously, getting the goal so early in the second half did help us. I think, was it the 51st minute we broke the deadlock? A lovely little 1-2 with Lawrence, who, as you say, we'll talk about a bit later on. But that's what he's going to do. He's going to find those little balls and create that kind of space. Lovely finish from Cholak. But if that's like 60, 70 odd minutes and we're still 0-0, then we start to panic. And we did see quite a few times last season where we weren't saved by a penalty, because obviously to win a penalty, you've got to be getting in those areas and drawing the fouls from the opposition defenders. But very often it was a penalty that got us out of it, that ended up getting us the points. And I think, as you say, we were a little bit too not direct enough, not taking enough chances, not creating enough space on Saturday. And if that goal would have come if that goal wouldn't have come by the 60th, 70th minute, then I think people might have started panicking.
Antonio Cholak has been getting a bit of abuse. That's too strong a term, but certainly a fair bit of criticism, Andy, since he's arrived at the club. And there have been games where he just hasn't been involved in. There's no getting away from it. For me, my calibration of him has changed slightly. That he's not a rampaging front man. He's not going to do what Alfie does. Very few players can. But the sign so far to me is this boy's a finisher. Make him a chance and he'll take it, which means we need to get making chances, playing through the middle, slipping balls through, all of that kind of stuff, getting to the byline and getting it back. I wonder if maybe we'd be better off focusing on what he can do rather than bemoaning what he can't.
Yeah, I think it's classic kind of making up in your mind what you want the player to be rather than what the player is. And I'm the same as you. All we'd seen him was last year against Malmo. We've seen what he could do. What can you take for 90 minutes when you're not actually watching the guy, or you're not aware that he's going to be a Rangers player? And I think, I half jokingly said on Twitter that he's Chris Cholak, as in Chris Boyd, because I think he's pretty close to that type of player, in that you perpetual movement, you're going to work very hard, but you can kind of discount what he's going to do outside the box by comparison to Morelos. And that's the important thing, because we're all used to what Morelos does outside the box, and we take it for granted now that it's actually a pretty rare thing for a centre forward of his ilk, who's a goal scorer, a focal point, a target man, whatever you want Morelos to be, he can be for you. But he can also drop deep, he can go wide, he can take me on. It's very, very rare to find a striker that you sign for 1.8 million doing all that. Let's face it, if he could do all that, he wouldn't have been at Park, and we wouldn't be getting him for that kind of price range. But his finish was good, and I was glad, because the bottom line is that if it wasn't for a really bad refereeing decision last week at Livingston, he's got 2 goals in 2 domestic games, and that's not bad going. So I think he's going to be a good squad player. He's clearly the third choice striker when Roof's back fit, but I always go back to the fact that you need 3 goal scorers. Firepower is what takes you to titles and cups, and you need people that can come in and chip in with 10 goals over the course of a season by being a bit part player. And he's certainly a finisher. So at half time, I think I sent a message to my pals saying that, how bad is he? Because he wasn't doing anything, and his touch was pretty poor, and there was just nothing happening. But I don't think it's about him. I think it's about his service. And I think if you give him service in and around that 18-yard box or 6-yard box especially, I think you'll get dividends. Domestically, I don't really have many fears from him in terms of scoring goals. But and I'm talking about us as a support, I think we need to appreciate what kind of player he is. He's not Mark Haley. He's a penalty box predator.
Yeah, and we did laugh at him 6 minutes later when Cholak scored the goal, folks, so don't worry. He got it tight. James, though, one thing I will say is that, even though, be patient and accept what Cholak is, etc., I'll say all that, it was nice to see what we've been missing when the wee man made his appearance. And my God, what a roar that was as he entered the field.
It was just all set up for him to score, wasn't it? With his new haircut and his cheeky little smile, he just came on. You saw one nice thing that I did notice is when Cholak scored, Alfie was one of the first ones to go and congratulate him. When he went off to celebrate in that corner, Alfie was straight over, and that's very positive in terms of team spirit, in my opinion. Especially when you got two guys who are ultimately going to be vying for the one starting role up front. So that was good to see. But yeah, he's come on, he's milked the applause, he's done what he's done. I don't think anybody else on the park would have been in that position to score that goal. And yes, it was only a tap in. And yes, he very did nearly fluff his lines by putting so much power into it. But he was there. He knew exactly where the ball was going to be, and he was there. And as whatever Cholak offers us. And I think after 3 competitive matches, it is 2.5 in his case, competitive matches, it is far too early to judge what he's going to give us. And what I've seen, he's not going to give us that. So it just further outlines how important Alfie is to us. The fact that, the mark of any good striker is knowing where to be. Now, you've got some people like a Gary Lineker or a Chris Boyd who that's pretty much all he did. But then you've got players like an Ali who he knew that, but at the same time, he could make things happen himself. I think the only player we've got with consistent fitness, because Roof's got it, but he's never fit, sadly. The only player we've got who's really going to play a part for us this season is Alfie. And, you can't buy that. You can't teach people to know where to be. They either know or they don't, and Alfie does. And, I think he proved that on Saturday, and he's going to be, as he is every season, he's going to be so valuable for us, isn't he?
Even in the short time he was on the park, and he wasn't match sharp, right? And there is a difference between being match fit and match sharp, and that only comes through playing. So you have to get him in. But even in the short time on the pitch, he took up 2 or 3 good positions, but they found him. And on another day, he gets at least a couple, I would say, in that match. Because he just does. He has that confidence. He gets himself into positions and he throws defenders out the road. Because sometimes when Alfie's on a rampage, it doesn't really matter if a defender's there or not. They ain't stopping him. And I think we've all missed seeing that, a rampaging Buffalo. Andy, into the midfield area now, that had been heavily criticised and deservedly criticised after the performance on Tuesday night. Now, they weren't the only area of the team that didn't function. None of the areas of the team function. So I don't have a problem. I'm not singling them out, but Jack wasn't good, Kamara wasn't good, and the manager turned to Stephen Davis at the weekend. Now, he hasn't always done that, and there were a wee bit of surprise. I was slightly surprised that he retained Davis, because he'd never really given the impression in the way that he had with somebody like Arfield, where he clearly really took to him. But you see what Stephen Davis can still do, and sometimes we look at the age, and he's definitely clearly not going to be the player he was, but he's still a very good player, and he still has his uses, and I thought he absolutely demonstrated that at the weekend.
So we know that when Davis is on the park, he's the brain of our team, and I think we also forget sometimes we've got quite a young team as well. When you look through that 11, you've got Sands as a young guy, you've got Tillman, Ridvan obviously when he came on or when he started, and you've got Wright, who I don't think is as advanced and mature as he should be for his age, to be honest with you. So Davis dictates the tempo, and I mean he can sometimes be guilty of that safety first on occasion, but he wasn't on Saturday. I thought it was progressive. He was making things happen. He was taking the ball off of the centre halves. He was linking very, very well. And I think it was just the proverbial old head in the team. And it made a hell of a difference, because for the Tuesday before, when we had Jack at lunchroom, I was quite shocked actually how far off the pace Jack seemed to be and everything he did. Quite worrying some actually. I don't know if it was just a one-off or if there's something there in terms of injury or fitness levels. But Davis was absolutely ready. And you mentioned about Van Bronckhorst and how he uses Davis, and I think you're right. I don't think he's his go-to guy in terms of first choice, but I think at this moment in time, while we are trying to bed in players, trying to get a rhythm, trying to get a flow, I think he could do a lot worse than actually use Davis as a steady hand in that team. I think he's got a calming effect, and he'd be one of the first names down for me. But right now, at this period we're in the season, I think he's invaluable, his experience. But the guy's a Rolls Royce. His ability is without question, and he's a fine wine. And we used to think he couldn't play with Lundstrom, but that's not true now. Lundstrom is up and running, and him and Davis know exactly how each other play.
Yeah, again, I just think that it's a long-term thing that we need to fix, and we haven't over a number of windows, really. The fact that it is still Davis and Jack and Kamara that are in there, I think we do need something different in there to add to that. But these are the players that we have currently, so you need to pick the one that's most informing. You need to pick the one that's going to provide something a wee bit better than certainly what we saw on Tuesday night, which was rather woeful. Tess, we mentioned Tom Lawrence earlier. I thought he was the man of the match for me, as good as Davis was, and he was. For me, it was Tom Lawrence. I thought that he offers us something we haven't had, which is wanting to shoot from distance regularly and being quite good at it. Very unlucky with one that crashed off the bar in the first half, but he got the assist. Lovely, because it wasn't a great ball from Čolak to him. He gave him a lot to do, but he did it, and then he gave Čolak it on a plate. I thought that he just looked different to a lot of the other guys that we have, and that he wants to play in that area where our guys don't, that in-between area, between midfield and attack. He picks the ball up. He's not all about speed. He's got a bit of nous about him. As I say, you know him pretty well. Tell us, is that the kind of thing we can look forward to from him moving forward?
I think what perfectly encompassed what you're going to see from Tom Lawrence was 15 minutes against West Ham United. When he came on, he scored a goal. He set 2 up, and he did mean that second one, by the way, because I've seen him do ridiculous things like that before. So he came on, he got 2 assists, and then he just completely randomly booted one of their players up the arse. That 15 minutes is Tom Lawrence. That's what I've seen of him over the last 5 years at Derby in a nutshell. Perfection. I thought he played well at Livingston. He had a couple of shots which didn't quite hit the mark, but he was all right. He was all right. When he came on Tuesday, he wasn't great, but nobody else was, so he wasn't on his own in that regard. Saturday, mate, that's what you're going to see from Tom Lawrence. He's going to find space where space isn't there to be found, both in terms of when he's got the ball, because he loves a dribble. He can absolutely take a man on. If you want to see an example of that, look at Derby County, Sheffield United from January of this year. Look at his first goal there. I think he takes on about half their team. One of the best goals I've ever seen live. So he loves to take a man on, but also he'll find space when he hasn't got the ball. He can find the space to thread a pass through. He knows when to hold it. He knows when to give it. I mean, that 1-2 he played with Čolak, he waited just enough and a perfectly weighted pass so that Čolak had the freedom of Ibrox to choose his place and smash the ball home. That 40-yard volley, that 35, 40-yard volley in the first half, again, when we signed him, I said to whoever had listened that he can and will shoot and score from anywhere in the opposition half, and sometimes outside of it too. He's not afraid of that at all. Again, I go back to an example that I've seen. Derby played Bolton a couple of years ago, and he's received a throw-in on the touchline, and it's a position he's got no right to be shooting from, let alone scoring. And he's just smashed it, and it's gone in. Again, about 30 yards from an impossible angle, and you're scratching your head like, how did he do that? That's what you're going to get from him. Yes, a lot of the time it ain't going to come off, and people will get frustrated with him as time goes on. But I think that he's shown more than enough. If we take twos out of the occasion, because I think we can all not accept that everybody had an off day, but understand that that's the case, so it's difficult to judge anyone. Look at his 2 performances in the league this season, and I think he's shown enough for him to be given that time. One worry when he came here was that he wouldn't hit the ground running, and we know at Ibrox we are a very demanding crowd because we've been formed on success, we've been raised on success, we are built on success. So other clubs, you ain't as good as your last result. I think it was Walter Smith who said you ain't as good as your last pass at Ibrox. That's just a fact. So my worry was that he wouldn't hit the ground running, and he wouldn't have shown people enough of what he can do for them to say, okay, he might not be on it today, but we've seen something there as a player. But he's proved that so far, I think. Again, his debut against West Ham is his performances in the league so far. He's shown us what he can do, and people are starting to recognise that. They're starting to take to him. They're saying, "Do you know what? Maybe this guy has got what we're lacking, especially against teams who are going to come and park the bus." I mean, Kilmarnock weren't as bad as I thought they'd be on a Saturday, but at the same time, they didn't really show much ambition to get out their own half. And it's players like Lawrence who've got the key to unlock that door that's going to be so vital for us this season. So I'm I still, don't get me wrong, he's moved from one of the clubs to the other, so it ain't like he's gone anywhere unknown, but I do still feel a little bit protective of him because of his legacy at Derby, and especially last season when Rooney made him the captain and he guided us through one of the worst periods in the club's history. I've got a lot of affection for him because of that, and I don't want it to be tarnished, but I'm glad that he's hit the ground running. It'll be nice when he gets his first goal because I can guarantee you it will be an absolute screamer. He doesn't really do tap-ins. I'm glad he's at the ground running. I'm glad the crowd are taking to him, and I'm glad that he's making a positive impact for Rangers.
Yeah, well, I'll take any sort of goal on Tuesday night, to be honest, but it would be nice if it was a screamer. Andy, we also got our first look at Ridvan Yilmaz. He started, played for an hour. The manager said afterwards that was the plan beforehand. And Rabbi Matondo as well came on, persevered and got his assist at the end. Both of them, I think, will have to develop a wee bit physically in Scotland. It shouldn't be this way, but it is in Scotland. It's a very physical game, and more importantly, referees allow it to be a very physical game. And you were telling us at the weekend you like all your defenders to be 6'4".
I quite like Dave McPherson. If I had a dream back four, it'd be Dave McPherson at right back, Kurt Broadfoot left back.
No, just no. 6'4" fullbacks don't look right.
Aye. And all joking aside, I think I was actually quite shocked at how he was, right? But I'm not daft enough to make a judgment on the boy based on what he looks like, because we've been proven wrong time and time again. And I do think that he will be used as an out-and-out wing-back. And you even seen for his starting position Saturday, he was noticeably further up the park than Barisic has been in games this season. And from what I can gather from the snippets I've seen of him, he's a man that plays with 1-2s. I don't think he's going to get by people like a winger. I don't think he's going to dribble past, but I think what he will do is play off the inside forwards and get 1-2s to the byline and whip in crosses. And again, you can't judge anything on a 60 minutes or whatever it was he did there. When he's had a week in the country, a 21-year-old guy that was kissing his mum goodbye live on Twitter the other week, it's too much to expect him to come in and rip it up in the first game back for his debut. So I'm going to say this, right, and I might love to regret it. I have a slight fear that it's easy for a team like us to tip over to being too lightweight given the league we play in. And we've seen this before with Advocates team, if you recall, if we go way back, there was a couple of signings and we just got a wee bit too lightweight and there wasn't enough robustness. I don't think that's going to be the case. It's just a slight wee fear I've got. And it's probably based on my Scottish football DNA of, you need to win the tackle first and foremost, and it's probably my dinosaur background. But, me Matondo, he gets stuck in and he's got pace, and I thought he made a wee bit of difference when he came on. No disrespect to Wright, but I thought Wright could have done a lot more. I want to see him be more brave on the ball. He's not the only one, but I want to see him take his man on. He's got pace, he can do it. He needs to have the balls to do it. And I think it was epitomised with the one where we get the break of the ball just inside their half, probably 3-on-2. And instead of just going with the ball and turning afterburners on, he looks for a pass. So, 6'4" left backs, good at corners, not so good going forward. Choose your poison.
I kind of think we have that conversation about Scott Wright every week on here, don't we? And there does come a point where eventually you kind of keep waiting for him to put it all together. He's going to have to start doing it. And we've had, moments in Scottish Cup final, of course, where you think, right, that's him, set. let's go now, and it hasn't quite translated very early in the season. But I think this is his make or break season at Ibrox. I really do.
Absolutely.
He's either going to be a contributor. I'm not saying he's going to play every week, but he's either going to be a contributor or he's not. And I think we will find that out for definite, for certain. I don't know anybody who doesn't think the boy's got ability, because he does. But we need more. We need output from that. It's not enough to, he came on last week against USG, probably the only one that did want to get in the ball and make things happen. And you look at that and you go, right, okay, I get it. Brilliant. More of that. And then, as you say, at the weekend, another disappointing match ends up with him being replaced. So, yeah.
What worries me, Davey, is that you've had Livingston, you've had Kilmarnock, you get hooked at half time with Livingston. He could have been hooked in certainly, let's be honest, because he squandered a lot of good possession. He's going to be making an impact in the games. If he doesn't make an impact in the kinds of games for his bread and butter, humdrum kind of domestic games, then I don't know if he's worth having.
That's the problem. And as I say, this is the season to either prove that he can do it or he's out the door. But, he gets a lot of chances that, say, somebody like Sakala doesn't.
Of course.
And I would say that Sakala produces more. So, he needs to take advantage of it. He needs to do it soon. I think there is a lot of goodwill towards him, and that helps. But it's time for him to stop being he could be player and start being a player, in my opinion. Tess, moving on then to probably a kind of a bigger, wider point, and it's going to sound like I'm having a moan, and I'm really not. I'm just suggesting that this is maybe a wee bit of a catch-22 situation for us. The game on Saturday, Derek McInnes' Kilmarnock side come, understandably, he said it himself afterwards. He says 2 months ago we were trying to get out the Championship. They were in a Europa League final. The gulf was massive. Financially, we can't compete. We need to do what we can to try and as best as we can compete with them. And I understand that, and he's totally right. He owes me nothing. He owes nobody other than Kilmarnock FC and its supporters anything. I totally get that, right? So this is not a criticism, even though it might sound like it. However, it does strike me that what that leads to, and we see it a lot in Scotland, is rather dull games, because it's not just against us. Kilmarnock will do that when they go away to most away grounds, as will several other sides. We wonder why we can't get much money in for our TV rights. It's because what we serve up in the main is pish. Unwatchable dirges. And look, I'm a Rangers fan. It would be lovely if everybody, went out and let us win 6 or 7-0. I get that. But even when we go to their grounds, one of the things you see if there's a discrepancy in other leagues is that at home in particular, teams will at least have a go. You don't get that in Scotland. And it just struck me that I thought, well, this is why nobody's going to watch this externally, because why would you? It's really dull, and you're not going to get much in the way of excitement.
I think one of the unfortunate comparisons that Scotland has got in terms of football is obviously it is so close to England. So we will all watch some yesterday, like Brighton going to Old Trafford and winning there 2-1. Not long after they hammered them 4-0 down at their gaff, by the way, towards the end of last season. Brighton will go to Old Trafford and win 2-1. And we think, well, why can't the smaller team? Because Brighton are a nothing club in the scheme of things. No disrespect to them and their fans. It's one of my favourite away days following Derby. But they're a nothing club, let's be right. And they always have been. They're small fry. So for them to go to Old Trafford, to Manchester United, still the biggest team in England, and get 3 points, you think, well, why can't teams in Scotland do that? But then you look at the budget that Brighton have got, and yes, although they're small fry, look at what they're paying their players. I mean, there's players in that Brighton team will be on in a week what the whole of a Kilmarnock will be on in a year. So, you've got to take the quality of the players into account as well. But also in Scotland, the old firm have moved so far ahead of everybody else that it's just they might be feeling like it's completely impossible for them to come and get anything. I mean, the chance for everybody to catch up was when what happened to us 10 years ago, and nobody took advantage of that. They all wanted us gone, but then never capitalised on our absence. So, I've got no sympathy for them, don't get me wrong, but, it's an absolute chasm. So they are thinking if they do come to Ibrox, if they do try to put on a bit of a show, they're just going to get picked apart and hammered. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, we put 7 past Tibbs, 7 past Motherwell. These are fairly decent, sizable teams in Scotland, and we ruined them. So, when the likes of Achille comes here, you can't blame them for shutting up shop. And again, I certainly have got no issues with them doing that whatsoever. Of course, I would rather they came, played an open game, and we put 7 or 8 past them. But that's just not going to happen. In the same way, if we were to draw Real Madrid or Liverpool in the Champions League group stage this season, and we go there and put on a perfect Catenaccio, I'd have no issues with that at all whatsoever. You've got to do what you've got to do to get the points and get the results. And I think the main thing for me, it's not the fact that these teams are doing that, because again, it's all about them getting their points, them getting their results. And if they are going to lose to us, it's about damage limitation in case goal difference is a thing for whatever it is that they want to do. But the main thing for me is that these teams in Scotland in general aren't producing enough decent young players. There isn't a conveyor belt of talent, so that every now and then one of these teams does think, like Hibs about 15 years ago when they had Scott Brown and Kevin Thompson coming through, that exciting young side they put together with, what's his name, Derek Reardon up front and that, Gary O'Connor. They had a lovely little team, didn't they? It's frustrating for me. I mean, I'm no lover of the Scottish national team. That's well known. But for me, if the Scottish national team are getting these players in, doing well, it makes a rival with England a wee bit better. Obviously, it raises the standard of Scottish football. And if we're playing against better teams week in, week out, it means we do better in Europe. So the whole ecosystem benefits from it. And it's frustrating for me that the facilities aren't in place to bring through the young players or of the scouting networks to get the players from lower leagues, non-league in England, to make these teams think, you know what, we are going to go to Ibrox today. We are going to go to Parkhead today. We are going to have a go at them. We're young, we're fearless. We've got nothing to lose. We've got an exciting team. Come on, let's go and give it them. I'd love it if teams are coming to Ibrox and doing that week in, week out, because again, if the standard of Scottish football gets raised, ultimately, the winner's going to be us when we play in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue with that. Andy, it's all fair, and the old, you can only tinkle with a winkle God gave you is very much true. It just seems to be one of these situations that it is what it is, and it's never going to change, and therefore us whining about it, I suppose, isn't going to create anything. But yeah, it leaves us stuck where we are.
I don't blame Kilmarnock. I don't blame any team for playing in a fashion that they think is, most conducive to them getting a point or 3, but it's the hypocrisy, Davey, that we consistently hear every year about, Scottish teams in Europe, the Scottish national team for long and weary. They make everybody makes the right noises about what we need, what we should be doing, and then don't applaud these teams. Then don't tell us Derek McInnes is a good football manager. Then he's a practical football manager, but he's not progressive, so don't hold him up as such. This is the thing that boils me, because he should never be in contention for any job of note, and he shouldn't be held up as a bastion of Scottish football, because he's not. He's an old-fashioned target man, total dirge football, and he's not adapting. Right, so it's the hypocrisy as opposed to the actual practicality. I get the practicality, but don't turn around it and lament Scottish football, but at the same time talk about guys like him. I mean, you even look at Malky Mackay, and he's not my favourite person. I'm probably getting into dangerous territory here.
No, but let's be honest, if Malky Mackay wasn't the person that he is, he would probably be managing lower end of the English Premiership. I mean, he shouldn't be at Ross County, but you do see the difference in actual quality manager can make, even in Scotland on a low budget.
Yeah, and you see the players as well.
Yep, no, I can't disagree. But as I say, it is what it is. It's not going to change. So I'll just have to get on with it and stop my complaining. But I agree with Andy as well that, let's not hear then about, whether Alba, why are we always getting gubbed in Europe? There's reasons for this, and they're fairly straightforward and obvious. But we got gubbed in Europe, there's no doubt about it. It was only 2-0, and that's the only positive, that it was only 2-0, because we were rotten, albeit terrible penalty decision. It should only be 1-0, but still, had they won 3 or 4, I don't think I could have had any complaints about it, Tess. Now, tomorrow night, Rangers welcome USG back to Ibrox. We've never turned over a 2-0 deficit in our history. The 10th most successful club in European football ever, according to a report that was done this week. So, even with that, we haven't been able to do it. I do think it's slightly different now that away goals have gone. I think that changes the dynamic somewhat, because in the old days, if you're 2-0 down, other team came out, got an early goal, sat in, you were done because you needed 4 and they knew it. So I think that has changed it somewhat, but it will still be a very big ask. First things first, if Rangers play the way they played last week, not only will we not win the tie, we won't win the match, we'll lose. We were rotten, absolutely scandalously bad. No hiding place from that. I think that USG Tests are well organised. I think they're hard working. I think they wanted it more on the night, which was probably the most unforgivable thing for me. But I don't think they're great. I really don't think they're a fantastic side. Rangers should be capable of beating this side by 2 goals. But again, it's all about what we do on the night.
We are absolutely capable of beating them 4 or 5-0 on Tuesday night, tomorrow night. We are absolutely capable of doing that. If everybody's firing on all cylinders, if Gio gets his tactics right, which more often than not in Europe he does, if we can get... Well,
he didn't last week.
He didn't last week, mate, no, but more often than not he does. So I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt for getting us all the way to Seville. If Alfie can play a part, because we know how essential he is in Europe, if the crowd play their part, we can absolutely blow them away tomorrow. Alternatively, we wind back 12 months against Malmo. The crowd weren't really up for it. I think we just expected to beat them. Even though we went into that 2-1 down from the first leg, I think the crowd, we just expected us to win and get into the playoff like it was a formality. If the crowd aren't up for it against USG, then the players won't be either. That symbiotic relationship, it's one of the most beautiful things about Ibrox on a big European night. Met no bones about it. Tomorrow it's a big European night. If just for getting in that playoff alone, is it £5 million or something daft that I've seen? Let alone the chance to compete for a place in the group stage proper. Tomorrow night is absolutely huge. It's going to take something special, because to overturn a 2-goal deficit, we could wipe that out in the first 10 minutes and stuff them. Of course we could, will we? More than likely not. So what you got to look at is we do need to be getting a goal in the first 15, 20 minutes, really give them something to think about. Level by half-time would be ideal, because obviously we all want to get it wrapped up in normal time as opposed to going to extra time, because at this early stage in the season, you just don't know if they've got it in the legs to fight all the way for 120 minutes, especially as it's likely to be quite a warm evening tomorrow because we've got this heat wave back, haven't we? So it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. They showed what they're about last week. I didn't think they were great, as you've said, but they were good enough to beat us. And if we don't turn it on tomorrow night, they'll be good enough to beat us again. So what I want to see is Ibrox full of expectation and absolutely buzzing. Forget the fact it's a third qualifier. It's in terms of our season. Tomorrow night is absolutely huge. So I want to see Ibrox rocking, proper getting behind the players who will respond, because they've shown time and again in Europe last season they will respond to that. I want to see Gio get his tactics right. I want to see every single player out there just run the bollocks off, basically, and just get the job done. Because for us to fail in the Champions League at this stage 2 years running, with the resources we've got in comparison to the teams that we've been playing, it will be unacceptable.
On that, Andy, Tess mentioned something that Ibrox going to be rocking, and there is no place like it when it is, and we saw last season on the run the effect it can have on the opposition teams. But I always think that yes, that can happen, but you need the players to light it. It's like a pilot light. It needs the players to just have the spark to get it going, and when they do, then wow. But there is a responsibility on the players to do that. They can't wait for the crowd to lift them. I think it's, there's a little bit they need to do, and then the crowd will run with it and carry them, but they have their role to play initially, in my opinion.
It's symbiotic, and I've got to be honest, I'm pessimistic about Tuesday night, and it's because of the red flags I spoke about at the start of the show. I just think that if we've got to force the issue, I don't know if we're capable of it just yet. It's too much like Malmo last year, where we came away for the first leg just alive and no more. We had an expectation getting the second one, and it's an easier game for them to play than for us, is my belief, because I thought they were well organised. They basically took the Livingston blueprint and they did it, but with far better attacking players. And I think we were wary of them on the break, and I think we'll be very wary of them on the break tomorrow. Now, there's 90 minutes to get 2 goals and take it to extra time. I think that's a realistic outlook. But I think the Rock and Ibrox thing, yes, we're off the back of last season where we had, lifetime highs at Leipzig and Braga. I think tomorrow, the biggest thing for the support tomorrow is patience, because I think the team, I don't think they're going to come out all guns blazing. I think you're going to have passes across the back four. I think that's obvious. I think they're going to have to be very, very patient, because let's face it, we lose a goal tomorrow, it's done. And I think any goals at any point in that game, and I hear, experienced pundits talking about, if Rangers get an early goal, aye, great, but I'll be honest with you, I think if we get it at half time and it's still nothing each, the game's still alive, as hard as that may be. I think patience is key tomorrow, as opposed to coming out and all guns blazing. It's a very, very big ask, and I think the flow and getting players playing together, if we find it tomorrow, it could kick-start the season very, very early, because you've got St Johnstone Saturday, then I think we would be playing again next Tuesday or Wednesday, wouldn't we, for the next game against PSV or Monaco. So I don't know, I think we've just given ourselves too much to do. That second goal was an absolute killer. 1-0, I think we're going through. 2-0 changes it so much.
Yeah, might as well no go now, eh?
Well, I was going to say that, but
miserable bastard.
Listen, I am miserable today. I don't know if it's my day at work or whatever.
You've changed since you became a father. You used to be a life and soul of the party, and look what it's done to you. And I warned you. I said, Andy, Andy, you're too old for this. And you went, no, I know what I'm doing.
Well, I'm definitely too old for it. I'm not disputing that.
I actually, believe it or not, I don't think that a goal for them kills it. If it's the first one, I take that back. But if we're like 2-0 up and they get one, I wouldn't think that would be, and it shouldn't be the end of the matter. But yeah, I think Rangers do need to come out and they need to give the crowd something, and they need to show the opposition that look, last week you got lucky with us having a terrible, terrible performance, because this mob will arrive confident, and deservedly so. Tess nailed it there. They were able to beat us comfortably. Wasn't close in any area of the park. And that's the most frustrating thing. You ask your players, leave it all out in the park, and we didn't last week. We didn't get close to it. That is not the Rangers team that we watched last season. It's not the Rangers team we expect to watch this season. It was very poor. And I think they've got to, fans were incredibly loyal travelling on in Europe to watch them, and they gave us some great moments and we gave them some great backing. Tomorrow night, I think they need to deliver for us a performance that's worthy of that support. So pressure is on them, but they got themselves into it. John Lundstrom at the press conference today acknowledged that they got themselves into that situation, but he says we're good enough to get ourselves out of it. So let's hope that proves to be the case. As Tess mentioned there's £5 million. Yes, we're going into the Europa League if we lose, and that's at least a nice financial safety blanket, but there's £5 million if we go through it the next round and lose and then go into that's a lot of money. So I don't think we can underestimate the value of this. Right, that will almost do us. Just a quick shout for our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Miles, and thank my two guests, first of all, to James Tessier.
Thank you very much for having me.
And to Andy McGowan.
My pleasure. Sorry if I've killed your buzz, everybody. Enjoy the game tomorrow night.
You away and get like a can of energy drink and just, sit down on the couch, get your hand in your trousers, just relax, right? Like Al Bundy style, exactly. There's one for the kids, eh? Right, folks, thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back. Loads of coverage on Heartland, with full coverage, Heartland and Patreon. Go and sign up. Thousands of you listen to this that don't sign up. You'd love it. That's the thing. You'd absolutely love it. And it's from $1.50 a month. So, less than a half-priced coffee. So go over to patreon.com/Heart and Hand. We'll be back, as I say, full coverage from Ibrox tomorrow. And Adam will be back with Heart and Hand Extra later in the week, hopefully celebrating a mammoth European victory. We did a few of them last season and they were always fun to do. We'll talk to you again then. Till then, I hope your team wins tomorrow night. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.